Hi there. So today I would like to talk about truth and lies. And there are many reasons that people decide to lie. And primarily it's because when they were kids, they were afraid that if they told the truth, they would get in trouble. And unfortunately, a lot of that behavior translates into adult behavior as well. So, for example, say you're in a relationship and this is with somebody who you really like, but you're not really feeling it, or maybe there's some conflict that you have going on. If you continue on the path of telling lies to yourself and to the other person, it will cause harm to your soul. So, a lot of times, you'll want to be with that person, but you have unresolved issues that you need to deal with. And unfortunately, we need to deal with our issues before we're ready for a new relationship. And some people just want to gloss that over and move on to the next. But that's very damaging to you and to your soul. So, my mother is one of those people who likes to sweep everything under the rug. And I sort of take more after my father, who's very direct, very blunt, kind of says things you don't necessarily always want to hear. And I inherited that as well. My mother, on the other hand, likes to avoid conflict at all costs. And even if it's at the cost of her relationships. When I was a kid, my mother sort of flaked out and she left me with an emotionally abusive aunt who really couldn't care less. And my aunt at one point told my father that if it were not for her, my brother, sister, and I would be orphans. So at that point, my father fought for custody. He got custody, and I ended up living with my father. My mother was raised in a household where it was kind of like children should be seen and not heard. And this same abusive aunt was her older sister, and she abused my mother when she was a kid too. So my grandmother was very, very strict, and they had a lot of chores that they needed to do before they went to school in the morning. And my aunt would basically beat my mother and force her to do her chores. When my mother was trying to stand up for herself, my grandmother would say things like children should be seen and not heard. And my mother's voice was never really heard. So she learned that conflict was a bad thing. And she tried to avoid it because her childhood experience was that her sister would beat her up all the time. And this translated into her adulthood where she never wanted to deal with conflict. And when you're raising kids and you've got kids that are coming at you from all different sides, you actually need to be able to be a grown up and to set boundaries with them. Now, unfortunately for my mother, this really bothered me that she would never stand up for me. She would never protect me or look after me. And really, I did feel like I was abandoned as a kid by my mother until she had my baby sister 14 years later. And then she actually started to take some action for herself. But she still has that behavior where she doesn't really like to address conflict. And what that does is instead of living your truth and being honest about how you feel about things when you're trying to avoid conflict, or when you're not telling the truth, or you're lying just to protect yourself or because you don't want conflict, is it diminishes your ability to have meaningful relationships. So my relationship with my mother is very superficial. I can't have a deep relationship with my mother at all, nor can my sister, nor can my brother, nor can my baby sister. It's all very superficial, and it's just that is the way that it is. Unfortunately, if we as adults entering into relationships continue with patterns like this, it will severely cripple our ability to have meaningful relationships, because meaningful relationships are about going deep. They're about revealing yourself. They're about being transparent. They're about being honest. And so many times you'll see that people are like, I just want somebody who's honest. And the problem is, when they got into that relationship in the first place, there must not have been full honesty. And for a lot of people, they fall in love with the idea of somebody, but they don't really fall in love with that person at the depth of who they are. A huge portion of people's conflict when we get into relationship is the inability to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be true to yourself. And as you're true to yourself, you're then true to others. So if I can express something like, say I'm in a relationship and I'm not really feeling like that person is being true honest with me, and I say, is there something going on? And they're like, no, no, no. And there is something going on. That's a lie. And it puts a barrier between you and that person who you're trying to gain intimacy with. And really what you need to do is resolve that conflict within yourself before you're really ready to dive into something, because those lies just build. And then after a while, the foundation of your relationship is built upon a lie. And it causes resentment, it causes pain, it causes hurt, and all sorts of things, which you don't want to do. You're just trying to spare somebody from being hurt. But if you're in a relationship and you're moving along that path and you can't be honest with yourself and you can't be honest with somebody else, it's very damaging. So later on in the week, I'm going to do a consciousness alignment for that. But for now, what I would love for you to do to help you identify some of the things that perhaps you're in conflict with is look at your life experience and look at your behaviors in your daily life and ask yourself if you're trying to spare somebody's feelings or if you're truly being honest in the situations that you find yourself in. Because truly, 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 the more honest you can be, the more the other people in your life appreciate it. And people can take it. And honestly, when you get to the point where you can be open and you can be vulnerable and you can be honest, the opposite happens of what you think will happen. If you think that you're going to get in trouble from because of your childhood experiences as an adult in an adult relationship, it's actually the opposite, because people can feel when you're not being honest and transparent with them. And then if you can just let them know, hey, this is what's going on with me, this is how I'm feeling, it really has nothing to do with you, it's got to do with something in the past, and it's something that I'm struggling with and I'm dealing with. If you can be honest with somebody and tell them, hey, I'm not really feeling this, it has nothing to do with you, I feel like I'm reliving this childhood experience where I wasn't able to be honest and tell the truth, or where I got in trouble, or where I wanted to please somebody, then that person can take it. And that honesty will allow you to develop deeper, more intimate relationships. Because when you can move through that with your partner, when you can move through the feeling that you're going to hurt their feelings, and you can allow yourself to be you, then you find that you're in relationships that are honest and that are safe. So what I would really love for you to do is just take stock on what's going on with you, what's going on with your life, how you're interacting with other people, and if you're being honest and true to yourself. Because the more honest and true to yourself you are, the more honest and true to your partner you are, and the more open, authentic, and meaningful your relationships will be. If you have any questions about this work, there are descriptions below, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you for showing up. Thank you.